This video is a continuation. Now, where are we going this time? Last time was the timeline. I told you that was half of the first layer of a tri-layer of revelations pertaining to the trumpets. So the first layer, we dealt with half of it, the timeline. Now we're going to interpret the week. Specifically, 5 aspects which pertain to the 10 prophecies video, or the 10 prophecies. So we're going to draw our focus now to the beginning of the week, specifically the half-hour silence, or the first part of the week. We're going back to my book. I'm just going to read from it. Let's talk in code, shall we? Ponder with me a question. Why did the Lord elect to add the word hour into Revelation? Why not another word like moment, second, interval, or a host of other similar words? Behind the desk I sit, a large clock hangs on the wall. Did you know 1 hour is literally comparable to 1 year? Consider, the numbers on a clock are 1 through 12. The months in a year are 1 through 12. 1 year is identical or easily comparable to 1 hour. Now let's discuss time spans. We're all aware that there's 30 minutes and half an hour. But what if I wanted to convey a time that wasn't exactly 30 minutes, say 25 or 35 minutes? Would it be reasonable to say 25 minutes is about the space of half an hour? Now look at my illustrations I got going here. Note the above clocks. Both times are virtually identical. Yet on the second clock, the time is 12:25. But what if we were queried on the time? Most of us would easily say it's about 12:30. Wouldn't you? Moreover, no one could refute the fact that the time is approximately, or about, 12:30. Now look again at the second clock. What month is it? Again, in prophetic terms, if 6 stands for 6 months or half an hour, then the 5 is going to stand for 5 months. The 4 for 4 months, 3 for 3, and so on. So a half hour, the minute hand pointing at the 6, gives us 6 months. So what if we're going to look at a time span that's 5.5 months? In a month, there's 30 days, at least prophetically. In 6 months, there is 180 days. But let's say we're looking at a time span that is 5.5 months. The minute hand is going to be exactly in between the 27 and the 28 minute. And by the way, each minute, if you want to figure this out, each minute is representative of 6 days. So if we were at the 29th minute after the hour, that would specifically be 174 days. On the clock, it would look like 29 minutes after the hour, or about the space of half an hour. I have heard people before, folks, they've speculated where they think the 70th week is going to begin, what time of year it's going to happen, what's going to happen at Rosh Hashanah. That's what most people say. Heard one guy say in spring. He didn't give a reason why. He just said it would, and I think it's because he believed in a mid-trib rapture. Therefore, if you start in spring, if you want to tally it up, by the time you've done 3.5 years, you're going to end in Rosh Hashanah, where he believed, or it's said and suggested by many, that that's where the rapture is going to occur. So I think that's why he said it. Let me show it to you in the Word, but I'll give you a word of knowledge that I want you to know. I put this in my book, but I'm not going to show you where it is. I'm just going to read it to you. I want you to understand this. The final week resumes exactly where it left off, in the month of Nisan. The 70th week begins exactly where the 69th week ended. Would anyone expect anything other than, for instance, what if I told you this week ends Saturday night 11:59, but next week begins Tuesday 3:35? Wouldn't you think I was nuts? Common sense tells us that if a week ends at Saturday 11:59 and 59 seconds, then the following week must begin at 12 a.m. So likewise with the 70th week. By necessity, it must resume where the 69th week left off. Are you hearing me? And where did the 69th week leave off at? It left off at Passover. It left off at the crucifixion. Basically, exactly, Nisan 15. That's going to be Passover. Now, you can quibble about whether it's Nisan 15 or whether it's Nisan 1. But, using again, simple common sense, we should expect something to resume where it leaves off. And in this case, the 70th week will resume where the 69th week ended. I can't show it to you in the Word, but it's certainly common sense. Back to the half hour. I am convinced that trumpets correspond to the annual, yearly, even seasonal Jewish celebrations of Rosh Hashanah, the Feast of Trumpets. Yes, they're sounding in the heavens, folks, but they are going to correspond, the first half of the 70th week, to the annual celebration of the Feast of Trumpets, Rosh Hashanah. If accurate, and as per the graph, the final week begins, there will be a space of half an hour, 6 months. After which the heavenly trumpet sounds, the first heavenly trumpet sounds, coinciding with the observed Rosh Hashanah celebration, the Feast of Trumpets. Impact of the trumpet follows. By studying the actual half hour, 6 months, we're given clues as to not only when this period transpires, the actual seasons, but other aspects. For instance, in the following verses, the half hour has already begun. Get a load of what we're seeing occurring prior to the first trumpet blast. Now, this is Revelation 8, verses 4 through 6. Again, this is right before the first trumpet blows. Verse 4, and the smoke of the incense, which came with the prayers of the saints, ascended up before God out of the angel's hand. And the angel took the censer and filled it with fire of the altar, and cast it into the earth. And there were voices, and thunderings, and lightnings, and an earthquake. And the 7 angels which had the 7 trumpets prepared themselves to sound. An angel cast a censer into the earth. And what followed also occurred on the earth. That's important. Why? Considering the locale, I'm claiming the chief target will be Babylon, the USA, for first trumpet impact. Now listen, folks, I explain this later in several chapters in my book. Some people are already getting a load of this. I am going to tell you right now, Babylon is the United States. I'm not going to get into it in this teaching, but I'm telling you now, Babylon is the United States. And what people don't understand, the book of Revelation, the entire book except before chapter 6, focuses in on the judgments of the whore, Babylon. And that is where these trumpet judgments are occurring. So the chief target's going to be Babylon, the USA, for first trumpet impact. Thundering and lightning occurs during particular seasons, namely spring and early fall months, anywhere from March to October. That's not to say thunder and lightning can't occur outside these months, but it's rare as thunder and lightning require hot masses. So it is with summer months. We experience the majority of thunder, lightning storms due to prevailing hot air. Of course, if anyone's thinking these effects could be occurring in heaven and not upon the earth, check out the text again. The angel casts a censer onto the earth. The result, thunder, lightning, and an earthquake. Yes, earthquake, not heavenly quake. So we got the 6-month season suggestively transpiring during spring and fall months, where hot air is generally prevalent. Further, during the season, there's an earthquake, so incredibly powerful the Bible bothered to mention it. Again, this earthquake will be in Babylon. Now, folks, I got to tell you something. There are people that are suggesting there's going to be an earthquake. Now, I don't know about other prophets, but I want to stick with the ones that are true. David Wilkerson saw a massive earthquake. John Paul Jackson saw an earthquake. I don't want to get into it, but it was so bad, so devastating, it changed the form of the United States. There are other people, John Kilpatrick, and others that have seen and or believe that we are going to experience an earthquake unlike man has ever known. And may I tell you, this is that earthquake spoken of by real prophets. But here it is in the Word of God, and it's going to occur between a spring and fall season, though we're not given the year. But that is when to look for it. During a time of spring to fall, look for an earthquake. So for my approximate starting date, Nisan being the first month of the Jewish calendar, or 15 days away from Passover, to Rosh Hashanah, the Feast of Trumpets, is 5 months and 27 days, or 177 days, or 29 minutes. Note this time frame is spring to fall. Now, if you're wondering why did I mention Passover, to be honest, I'm positive the week begins where it left off. Still, I'm uncertain whether it's Nisan 1 or Passover that actually launches the 70th week. No matter, being these 2 dates are separated by a mere 15 days. For simplification purposes, we'll take Nisan 1 as the beginning. If any of you are thinking, Steve, 5 months and 27 days is not an exact 6-month half-hour period, you're right, it's not. It's 3 days shy of an exact 6-month period. If, however, I selected Passover, it would be 5 months and 12 days. Folks, either date lends credence to John's statement. There was silence in heaven for about the space of. This terminology, by anybody's definition, is merely an approximation, not an exact. Remember the clocks? There's your half hour of silence, folks. 177 days, 3 days shy of an exact 180-day timeline, a 6-month period, opening at Nisan, concluding at least this half hour silence at the Feast of Trumpets. So I've given you the suggested starting date, the month of Nisan. Then approximately 6 months later, the Feast of Trumpets is celebrated and the first heavenly trumpet sounds. Now I'm going to go back up to verse 5 because I kind of skimmed right over it. I want you to pay attention to something. I mentioned this in the 10 prophecies video. And the angel took the censer and filled it with fire of the altar and cast it into the earth. And there were voices. When I read this word voices, I hear protests. I hear riot. Now, if you're thinking, well, it doesn't say protests. It doesn't say riots. You're right. It doesn't. But that's the word I hear. I hear protests, folks. Now, if you think about it, all a protest is somebody offering their 2 cents. They're wanting their say. They're wanting their voice to be heard. That's protests. And if you watch the news, that's what we got going on right now. And as I said in the video, I told you it would happen next year. And it will be next year, but does that mean it couldn't happen sooner? That's what I was trying to say. There's 2 reasons why I felt it would happen sooner. First, I felt it. But I can't prove that, can I? I can't go to you and say, I sense it's happening sooner, or it's going to happen sooner. I suggested it. The second thing is, if you're thinking, well, Steve, it says it's going to be within the 6-month window. There it is. Yes, there it is. But consider it like this. I come home today at 6 o'clock. My wife's there. She's cooking dinner. I can tell anybody that asks. My wife is there at 6 o'clock. There she is. I saw her. There she is. She's cooking me dinner. But that doesn't mean I know what time she got there. All I know is she was there at 6 o'clock. Same thing applies to this. Now we're going to look at the trumpets specifically. I need to start out by telling you this. Trumpets are simply effects. They are the results of something. Now, I've heard people say that we should be looking for meteor showers and or meteorites, a big asteroid is going to come down, and how it will be maybe a volcano and all these different effects. The problem with this, folks, if they follow these effects to their natural conclusion, nobody is able to comprehend it. Jesus mentioned there would be war. He said nation would rise against nation. If you look at the 2nd seal in chapter 6 of Revelation, peace is taken from the earth. May I tell you this, and these trumpets are the result of war. As God spoke it to me, each trumpet was the result of the former, or they are all the result of the first. So the first trumpet, the first angel sounded, verse 7, the first angel sounded, there followed hail and fire mingled with blood, and they were cast upon the earth. Third part of the trees was burned up, and all green grass was burnt up. What should we expect from this? First up, it's not hail on fire. It's not hail with fire. I've heard people say that, meteor shower. It's not saying that. These are 2 different elements. I want you to consider a couple things. First up, let me address the part. This is Babylon. But you could argue and say, no, this is a third of the earth. But I can't prove that simply via the verse, right? I don't want to go where I can't prove from a verse. So the hail. Is this hail with fire or hail on fire? Is that what the verse says? No. I'd ask you, if we're talking wartime, what type of fire would invoke hail? Did you hear what I said? We're talking fire that is taking out human life. That's the fire mingled with blood. There is a kind of fire that would take out a third part of the United States or a third part of the earth. A nuke, nuclear detonations, create and invoke hail, just like a tornado does. You watch a tornado, the funnel cloud that goes up into the atmosphere, it brings all the precipitation in the air, it brings it all up into the air, and it gets high enough to where it freezes, and then you got yourself some hail. The same phenomena happens with a nuke, a nuclear detonation, though it is massive hail. That is what this is. Now, all these other trumpets are the result of the former. The second is a result of the first. The third is a result of the second. Watch what I mean. The second angel sounded. This is the second trumpet. And as it were, a great mountain burning with fire was cast into the sea, and a third part of the sea became blood. A third part of the creatures which were in the sea and had life died, and a third part of the ships were destroyed. Now I've heard people say, this is a meteor going into the water. I've heard people say it's the Canary Islands going into the water. Technically, you could, if you had a meteor, it would destroy the ships. It would also destroy some creatures, with it being sea life, but it wouldn't be a third, neither by the Canary Islands or by meteor, unless we're talking something bigger than a bus being a meteorite. Which we start doing that, we're going to be sent back to the Ice Age. That cannot be what's going to happen here. So a regular meteorite, asteroid hitting the waters would kill within a couple mile radius. But that's it. where you're losing me on either of these scenarios. You cannot create a third part of the sea to become blood. I don't care if you killed every living thing in the entire sea. You wouldn't even get a red tint out of it. So what is this blood? In wartime, military targets are going to be gas and oil rigs. Remember the BP oil spill? Do you remember the creatures or the sea life that it is still wreaking havoc on from that one measly oil rig? In the Gulf, there are hundreds of oil rigs. I assure you, if there has been a nuclear bombardment on us, anybody with half a brain is going to take out our oil refineries. And John saw this picture, though it looked a lot worse. This is from the BP oil spill. That is the only thing capable of turning the sea to blood and killing a third part of the creatures in the sea that have life to kill them. Obviously, a nuke going down is also going to take out the ships.